Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to start with chapter 7, which is about trigonometry. I'll explain what that is in a moment. This is very closely related to chapter 4, because in chapter 4 you learned about the tangent, right? And this is what you learned actually. You learned the tangent is always the opposite side divided by the adjacent side. So if you want to calculate an angle, let's say this angle, angle B, then you have to do tan minus 1, then always the opposite side, so 6, divided by 11, and then you have an answer. Right, and that's it. Now, if you look at the triangle, you have 3 sides, right? So you can use those 2 sides. But if I don't know this one, but I do know that one, then there is another button that you can use that uses those 2 sides. And there's another one that uses those 2 sides. Now, one of them is called the sine, and then you write it down as sin, like this, but the whole word is sine, like that. And that's the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. So if I take a look at this triangle, here I don't know what DE is. So if I want to know this angle, then if I want to use the tangent, then I have to calculate this side first. I mean, I can't do that. I can do 13 squared minus 5 squared and the square root. Right? You can use the Pythagorean theorem. But there is a quicker way if you use a different button on your calculator. Because if you take a look at the calculator, then here you see tangent, and then next to the tangent we have the cosine and the sine. So if I know the opposite side and the hypotenuse, I can use the sine button. So then this is what you do. You press the second button, and then you press sin, like this. And then you do opposite side, which was 5, divided by the hypotenuse. And there you get the answer. So in this case, the angle is 22.6 degrees, this angle. So let's do an exercise out of the book. If you want, you can try it yourself first, because there you can see if you understand it. And after that, you can check your answers using this video. But the exercise I'm going to do is exercise 7 and then also exercise 11. It says calculate angles A, B, C, and D in this figure. So the first thing that you need to figure out is, do we have to use the tan or do we have to use the sine? Right? If we want to calculate angle A here, then if I take a look at the triangle, I know the opposite side and I know the hypotenuse. So opposite and hypotenuse was the sine. So I have to do sine minus 1 and then 2.1 divided by 3.8. Now if you calculate that, you get 33.5 degrees. So this is how you calculate that. For angle B, we also have to use the sine, because I want to calculate this angle and I know the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So then you do 0.7 divided by 3.7, and then you have the answer, which is 10.9 degrees. Then for shape number C, right? If I want to calculate this angle, I know the opposite side and the hypotenuse, so that means that, again, I have to use the sine. So if I write this down, then this is 52.0 degrees. And then for the last one, here we actually know the opposite side and the adjacent side. So that means that we don't use the sine, we use the tangent. So for angle D, I do tan minus 1 and then 1.8 divided by 2.6. And then you have 34.7. So this is actually this chapter 7, is very similar to chapter 4. The only difference is that instead of one button now, we have 2 buttons to choose from. And in the next paragraph, we have 3 buttons to choose from. Because on your calculator, you can see that there are 3 buttons next to each other, sin, cos, and tan, right? I also want to do exercise 11 with you. And just like the other one, maybe you want to try this one yourself first to see if you understand it. And if not, you can watch this video, right? So maybe you can pause it now, see if you can figure it out yourself. And then I'll show you the answer later, right? So I'm going to show you the answer now. It says the ski slope is 285 meters high and has an angle of elevation of 16.2 degrees. Calculate the length of the slope in meters, round off to 1 decimal place. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to make a small sketch. So I'm going to make a sketch of a triangle like this. The triangle should have a 90-degree angle, otherwise you can't use the tan, sine, or cosine. It says that the ski slope is 285 meters high, so that's this length, because that's the height. And we also know the angle of elevation, and that's this angle. I mean, elevation means that something goes up, right? So if I put my pen flat on the table, now the angle of elevation is 0, but then if I start moving it upwards, then we have the angle of elevation there, right? Because it's elevated. So this angle is 16.2 degrees, and we want to know the length of the slope. Well, the length of the slope is this length. It's the hypotenuse, right? That's the slope. Because the slope means, if it's about the ski slopes, this is the part where you actually ski on, right? If you would ski over here, then you would be on the ground. And it doesn't make any sense. So we need to calculate the length of the slope. So we need to calculate a side now. And if you calculate an angle, you use the -1 version of these buttons. And when you calculate a side, then you don't. So first I'm going to write down the sine of 16.2 equals the opposite side, so that's 285 divided by the hypotenuse, and that's the one we don't know. Right? Now in chapter 4 we did the same thing, but then with the tangent here, and you would do that if you want to calculate this length, right? But we want to calculate that length, so that means I have to use the sine, because we know the opposite side, and I want to calculate the hypotenuse. Now if I wrote down that, then hopefully by now you memorize what you have to do. Right? If the number at the bottom is missing, like over here, then you have to do divided by. If the number on top is missing, then you have to do times. So in this case we have to do 285 divided by the sine of 16.2. Like this is one number, right? Don't do 285 divided by 16.2. No, it's divided by the sine of 16.2. Now if you calculate that, you get 1021.5 meters. And that's the length of the slope in this exercise. So now it's everything is visible. Sorry about that. Hopefully everybody understands it. If not, let me know. I can make another video for you. I can explain other things. Right? It's no problem if you send a message at all. But if you do understand it, then that's great. Thank you for watching.